Hi everybody, happy post-Thanksgiving. Sorry I'm posting this video a little bit late, but as you can tell I'm a little bit under the weather. I do have enough voice this morning, however, to describe to you and sing for you a little bit the kinds of trills that you're seeing in Maestro Guido's markings. Now, don't get nervous. Trilling is not really common practice for us in choral music. However, in Baroque music and performance practice, it was very, very common. We will be doing a couple different kinds of trills in this performance. However, before we even talk about what kind of trills, let's learn how to trill. It's a bit of a painstaking, non-artistic process. First, understand that all trills are diatonic, meaning that everything is in the key signature that that particular trill is written in. So there's the fundamental note. In C major, that fundamental note is here, so then the next diatonic pitch up would be A natural in the major scale. So we would trill up a whole step. Now, we're gonna hold that on the same vowel. We'll do 2 beats in between, then 1 beat in between, then an 8th note in between, then a 16th note in between, and then a 32nd note, which would be the trill. We'll do it on the vowel O. Now, as you get to the trill, it sort of sounds like vibration that is a little bit wider. You will keep the air spinning in your oscillation, but you will oscillate between 2 pitches instead of what you would normally do, which is vibrate around the same pitch. That is an upper neighbor whole step trill. Now, let's say we're in the key of C major, and we have a trill on B, which would diatonically be related to the next note up, which is C. So then we have a half step. We'll do the same thing. 2 beats, 1 beat, 8th note, 16th note, then the 32nd note trill. And again, the last pitch sounds like vibration that's going a little bit too far, and that's what trilling is going to feel like. Now, you want to keep the air of the oscillation really, really spinning, just like you would be singing a note, because you don't want to trill over 3 notes, or a minor third, or wobble on that particular note. So the oscillation should be a 32nd note speed. Now, let's talk about the different kinds of trills that you're going to see. If you open up to page 35 in the Messiah, you'll see in the soprano part at the beginning of "And He Shall Purify," normally, and He shall purify, and He shall purify the sons of Levi. We call that a shake trill. The shake trill happens when there is a short note value, like a quarter note, and there's not enough time to get a landing pitch. So you end up using, again, the E natural. The next diatonic pitch in the key signature available is F, so that's a half step trill. The sons of Levi. It feels like an oscillation vibrato once again. Now, we'll go to another example of that that's just a little bit different. This is another shake trill on page 38 in the alto part. Now this is going to be a whole step trill because, again, how it's laid out in the key signature is very important. I'm on the second measure, top of 38. Here's the alto part. The sons of Levi. I'm trilling between the F and the G. Always upper neighbor, and there's no landing pitch. Now, what do I mean by a landing pitch? Well, here's the second kind of trill. It's called a landing trill. On page 92, you see that Maestro Guido has, in measure 41, written an 8th note at the end of that bar. That is the pitch that you're supposed to land on in that particular trill. So if you look at the soprano part, starting at measure 38, goodwill towards man, goodwill towards man. And if you heard the landing pitch on the end of 4, the entire section will have to land on that D at that moment. And hopefully, I would assume that Mr. Guido is going to give us a particular cue at that moment, or just a look, so that we know when that landing pitch is going to occur. That is called a landing trill. If we have a note written in, it's assumed that we will sing that note without trilling at the end of the bar. Now, I know I'm moving fast, but feel free to pause as you need to. Let's look at a duet trill. At the top of page 80, third bar. Now, this is between the altos and sopranos, and you'll see that there are two different note diatonic values that need to be trilled on. So if I'm the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Now the altos are trilling on a half step because F sharp is in the key signature and the next diatonic pitch available is G. The sopranos are trilling on a whole step because A to B is a whole step and then F sharp to G is a half step. So the alto would sound like this. The everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. The soprano sounds like this. The everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. As you can see, of, or the note of, is unadulterated with trill. It's the previous note. Now assume that they will not line up 30-second notes wise going like this. Just the shaking of those notes adds the color that the maestro is looking for. That is a duet trill. Now, the last kind of trill we'll see is an appoggiatura trill. So turn to page 128 in chorus 22 and with his stripes. If you look at the alto part, and with his stripes we are healed. You see Maestro Ueda has written in an appoggiatura, which is the 2/16 notes leading to the F natural. Healed, healed. That is called an appoggiatura trill, meaning that the dip under is instead of a landing pitch, we dip underneath the fundamental instead of healed would be a landing trill. An appoggiatura is healed. And you'll sing those notes in rhythm after you do the initial trill. Here's another example of an appoggiatura trill. The difference is that the note value is longer. Look at page 132. And you'll see in the tenor part, which is a normal appoggiatura trill, just like we had before, a half note value. However, the sopranos, at the bottom of 132, you see that it lasts for an entire bar at measure 62. It's the same basic principle. You trill to the next diatonic upper neighbor note. So sopranos, it sounds like this. At measure 57, 58. We are healed. And there's that appoggiatura works just a little bit differently because now the landing note is below the appoggiatura. So instead of going healed, now the appoggiatura happens and we actually go down at the end of that appoggiatura. Healed. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I figure out where I should be trilling, what note is next? Baroque music is very instinctual. What I would be concerned the most with is what sounds right to you. What seems to be the right thing? Of course, I'm happy to clarify half step, whole step, things like that, but in general, if it sounds weird to you, it's probably wrong. In Baroque music, the most important thing is to trill always moving to the next upper neighbor, and then be careful if it's just a shake trill, if it's a landing trill, if it's a duet trill, or if it's an appoggiatura trill. Now, it's clearly marked. These are wonderful, wonderful markings. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But going back to the fundamental idea, let's first learn how to trill by going slow, 2 beats, 1 beat, 8th note, 16th notes on the same vowel, and start to become comfortable with the oscillation of the trill. All right, that just gives you the scratch of the surface. Practice all 4 of those different kinds of trills, and I'm really excited to see what color this creates.